Well, let's bring in now Gareth Redmond-King, who's in Baku. He's the head of the international programme at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit. Thank you very much for being with us today. What are your thoughts, Gareth, as this COP gets underway? Are you hopeful that something can be achieved, notwithstanding the incoming new Trump administration?
Hopeful, I think, yes. I mean, it's not an easy ask to get all the countries of the world together and get them to agree to a very difficult and ambitious target. But they have done it before, and quite recently. The Paris Agreement in 2015 is, of course, the basis for these negotiations. And that set a very ambitious target of limiting global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees, and that has really established considerable momentum that has seen the whole world moving away from fossil fuels and towards clean energy over the last decade since that agreement came into force. And that, of course, encompasses a period that Donald Trump was president of the United States before and did his best to slow and limit climate action, and he wasn't successful in that term. This time around, the clean energy industries globally are worth an awful lot more money. The clean energy capacity, clean electricity capacity globally has doubled in the time since he left office. So it may be even harder for him to slow progress on the clean transition this time around than it was last time around.
And looking at the other economic superpowers, I'm thinking of China, I'm thinking of India as well. It's often said, what would motivate them to go further on reining in climate change if the United States is not willing to? But what can you tell us about their individual attitudes to this issue?
Well, I mean, China, we don't need to wonder whether China is committed to taking action to tackle climate change. It's the world's biggest investor in clean energy. It is investing more than the whole of the rest of the world put together in terms of moving away from fossil fuels and towards renewables. It's reckoned that their emissions could, in fact, stay level and even start to fall from this year, which is ahead of their commitments that they had made in their promise under the Paris Agreement. They've hit their targets that they set under that pledge months and in some cases years early. So, I mean, they are pretty committed, and they have, in fact, of course, driven what we've seen in the last few years under the Biden administration with the introduction of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, that created huge incentives to mobilize investment in clean energy. We've then seen the European Union competing with that to attract investment. We've actually been seeing a race to the top that in many ways has been fueled by China's commitments and indeed domination of some parts of the clean energy sector. And, India sees those opportunities as well. India wants in on those economic benefits, as well as the public health benefits of reducing the air pollution, which, of course, burning coal causes. And they've committed to a very ambitious, at the COP that was hosted in the United Kingdom in 2021, they committed to a very ambitious target to get to net zero by 2070, which for a developing country of its size is genuinely ambitious.
And Gareth, we're often reminded also these days that renewables are already proving themselves. They're being produced more cheaply than fossil fuels. So can we expect some momentum towards change to come from that simple fact?
Absolutely. And the rate of investment in clean energy at the moment in renewables is twice that of fossil fuels. And that's globally. That's not just in, a couple of Scandinavian countries and the UK. That's globally. The rate of investment is twice in renewables as in fossil fuels. And the International Energy Agency reckons that means that demand for fossil fuels will actually peak at the end of this decade in 2030. So, in many ways, driven by the political agreements that were made in the Paris Agreement, driven by the commitments that countries collectively have made since then, but now increasingly driven by market forces, by the economic benefits that are to be had from deploying clean energy, it has built up considerable momentum.
Gareth Redmond-King from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, thank you for joining us on Business Today. Well, the shadow